Our biggest opportunity is just getting people to know who we are and trying the product. We know that once we get into the kitchen, we don't lose in the kitchen. Our focus, our vision is the art of Italian flavor. So we're trying to bring that Italian experience in a jar of sauce, in a bottle of olive oil, and bring that to households. And we felt like that was something that was unique, compared to a lot of other brands out there, that we could really tell that story and stay focused on it.
Welcome back to New York's Business Podcast. My name is Jacob Restituto. I'm the host and owner of Restituto Media, a full-service photo and video company based here on Long Island. Today I'm here with Joe Asaro, co-owner and vice president of Botticelli Foods. Very much looking forward to this conversation, especially because I am a consumer of your product.
We appreciate that.
So I'm looking forward to hearing about the journey of the
Absolutely.
product and also as a business owner.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be on here today. Really excited to share a little bit about my family's company and what Botticelli Foods is all about and how we do what we do.
Absolutely. So give me a little backstory based on who you are and how you got into the industry and how you got into the business.
Yeah.
I know it's a family-owned business, and I know that this is the third generation. You were the third generation, but I want to
Yes.
hear from your point of view and tell me a little bit about the brand as a whole.
Yeah, so I'll share a little story about myself too. So I've pretty much been in the CPG industry since I've graduated school, but I always like to say I've been in it my whole life, obviously being a part of the journey here at Botticelli Foods. We started in 2002. My journey didn't begin until 2020 with the company. My prior background was in the space, originally working for a brokerage. So had the opportunity to work with a lot of big manufacturers, brands, and then from there had the opportunity to work at Chobani. So for me, it was really learning outside of the business before I came in. Ironically enough, when I was in college, I thought I wanted to go another route and kind of get out of this crazy business and go toward a different route of potentially going into finance. And I kind of learned through my internship programs throughout college that it wasn't the right fit for me and who I am and who my personality is. And I always came back to CPG is such a people industry. It's obviously about making great products and having a great program and really having a brand that you could really build on. But it all goes back to the people and the relationships. That's something I've learned from my family. So, when I was getting ready to go into my senior year, I really wanted to get back into the space. And I started out in the brokerage world of Advantage to really understand, try to learn from as many companies as I could and had the opportunity to learn from some great leaders there and really understand the difference between good business models, bad business models, because you kind of had a full spectrum of, really strong brands and ones that really struggled. So I got to really see what that spectrum looked like. Was there for about a year and change, and then made the jump over to Chobani and got to work on pretty much what was a brand new team at the time. And for me, a lot of my inspiration comes from my time there, just because it's an extremely entrepreneurial company. The time I was there, they were already $1 billion company, but a lot of the people that I had grateful for the opportunity to work with there were there in the beginning days and kind of told me all their war stories about how they built that brand up and how they took the massive climb that they did to become, one of the biggest brands within the space and just overall as an influence within the grocery industry. And really, that was a fire that ignited me of just, becoming more entrepreneurial and getting into the space. And like I mentioned earlier, it was always the goal to eventually come back to Botticelli, but there was never a timetable on it for me where it was like, hey, you got 3 years to learn, and then we're going to bring you in, and we're gonna start you with the company. It kind of happened naturally, which is pretty funny. So, a little bit about our company and how I came back into the picture. We started in 2002. My father and grandfather started this company off a very interesting opportunity. So my grandfather came to the United States back in the 60s as an immigrant with a few dollars to his name, no college education, and really I'm named after him. Unfortunately, he didn't get to see what the company became, but really a true inspiration to me because he was an entrepreneur at heart. Was grateful to be given opportunities that he did to work within the CPG space for another organization, and always had that entrepreneurial mindset to get into his own business. And they found their way into the candy manufacturing world with him and my father, which was a business, and they enjoyed what they were doing, but it wasn't really a love. And I think I always go back to my family, where my whole family on both sides could be linked back to one small town in Sicily. And when we came to the States, like many Italian Americans, your whole family life and your experience revolves around food. And it was no different for us, Sunday dinners and food and the love that's put into everything that we made. And really, how it linked back to a business opportunity was, back in the early 2000s, we had a really good relationship with one of the retailers here in the Northeast, actually ShopRite. And a couple of our partners over there, wanted to create something exciting within the olive oil category. And they needed a brand to do it. And kind of the connection was that we had some, affiliations with family members overseas that, had olive oil production and had the ability to create oil. And we kind of thought that that was something a little bit more within our realm of, and people say it all the time, when you do something you're really passionate about, it's not work, it's something you love and you really enjoy building on. And we started looking out into the space and we said, there's so many brands, olive oil and pasta sauce in particular, where there's so many brands that they look Italian, they sound Italian. And obviously it goes back to these big consumer companies where, they're trying to market something that it's really not at its core. And I think that's something we saw as a really unique opportunity to create this brand, is that there was a white space opportunity to bring real authentic Italian products here to the United States. And when it came time to figuring out what the name was going to be called, our last name's Asaro. So originally that was kind of the first step of saying, hey, I think we could just trademark Asaro, just make it easy. It's our last name. And unfortunately, it was already trademarked. So
wow.
We kind of had to go back to the drawing board and figure out like what were we going to call this thing, And my grandfather, he had such a mind, for business and just really just really good foresight, and he loved fine art. And obviously Sandro Botticelli, The Birth of Venus, is something that's, obviously a masterpiece and really a piece of art history and something that people know. And we started thinking at Botticelli, fine art, the translation into fine Italian food, and also just a name that we felt that people would be able to resonate with, that when they heard that name, they would know it's Italian right away and they would know it's quality. And it's funny, we have consumers, they call us every day, and we've had shoppers call us and proudly say they've been buying Botticelli for 50 plus years, when, as I mentioned, we only started in 2002. So it just showed that like my grandfather's vision, like not even knowing it, like didn't do market research or anything like that, and just kind of it clicked. And that's the name we went with, and we launched a product at ShopRite in 2002. We quickly became one of the best-selling olive oil brands within the category there. And we're a family business, so we didn't have a big operation at the time, and we never could have imagined what the brand has become today. And we were a small team, and we thought we would just sell to one store and that would be the end of it. We didn't have to go out there and go present to all these other customers, but we started getting phone calls from a lot of these retailers within the market, and they've changed a lot from what it is today, compared to what it was in 2002. But they would call and say, why haven't you guys talked to us? And why haven't you pitched your products to us? We want to work with you guys. And we quickly realized that everything we imagined with what that brand was became very quickly from the jump of shipping product and getting it into consumers' hands. And I think we realized then, and we've expanded on it a lot further, and it's evolved over the years, but that this brand really had power out there, and it was fitting a need for consumers, particularly within where it started in Northeast and now it's a national brand, but really delivering on that cultural value of getting something that really felt closer to Italy than really anything that was being provided in the store today.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Great backstory, great setting the stage for this whole conversation. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Super in depth. I want to hear a little bit about the transition from the candy industry into now the olive oil industry.
Yeah.
But then also from that, the olive oil industry now into the sauce industry. Obviously, you said that the candy was not necessarily a passion; it was just an entrepreneurial venture. But the olive oil and the Italian product was a passion.
Yeah.
What made you decide to say, hey, especially when something's doing so well, for example, the olive oil, say, hey, we're going to venture out and try something new versus continuing to stay in a specific lane? I think that a lot of entrepreneurs sit in two different camps. Say, hey, let's get one thing really good and just stick to it forever.
Yeah.
And then there's the other that says, hey, we're doing one thing really good. I think we could do another thing really, really well.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, obviously you're sitting in this other space. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I think once we realized, in 2002, when we started shipping the product and kind of some of the stories I mentioned to you, we realized that, to exactly your point, that, to really be successful, you have to stay focused. And we felt at that time that, for us to make the proper investments to grow the brand, we had to, exit out of the candy business, and we had the opportunity to sell to someone to kind of, assume that business from us and really allow all of our time and resources to go into building the Botticelli brand.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
So the candy started in 2002 or the olive oil started?
The olive oil started in 2002.
So the candy started.
It was a separate business.
Okay, so not even under the it was totally different name and everything.
Yeah, so
I
it was
see.
on. Yeah, so we did something completely different. A
I
lot of
see.
like co-manufacturing for a lot of like Mars, and we did mostly like sugar-free candy. So like we work with some pretty big manufacturers in the space and some private label with retailers as well too. So
Very interesting.
very yeah, totally siloed different businesses, and then we pretty much exited out of that business and really put all of our resources and time into the Botticelli brand. And to exactly your point, I think it's a good one because I think when you're an entrepreneurial company, you could quickly, entrepreneurs are creative and they want to always find that next big thing, and
Yes.
I think, that's a big thing we talk about here in the company too. And, from when we started in 2002, we were pretty much an olive oil only company until 2013. So we really focused on mastering, from both, building the brand, making fine tunes to packaging and really like getting traction there. Once we kind of built a nice runway there where, retailers started talking to us. I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, you got a great olive oil product, but you could do much more with this brand. And I know we had the opportunity to really develop the sauce from scratch. So, like you said, like I think what makes us very very strong as a company is that we do stay very focused. And getting into pasta sauce, and it was probably hundreds of conversations about should we do this, should we not do this. It's a obviously a very competitive category. It was a different category back then than what it is now, where it was mostly dominated by low-end sauces like, Prego, Ragu, which is really all that was out there at the time. And when we got down to it, like we said, a big thing at Botticelli is that if we don't fully believe and love a product that tastes right, we won't make it. And it was kind of with sauce, as you can imagine, being from an Italian household, it's like, everyone you talk to most times, oh, I would never buy George sauce. I make my own sauce. So when we were getting down to like developing a formula for this product, my grandmother was at the heart of this. So, at my uncle's house every Sunday for multiple months, we tried iterations of different, formulas and, tweaking things. And it was literally her like putting it in the pot, heating it up and tasting and saying a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And really she was the master behind what the sauce became. And it's just amazing how like that story, like I love telling people that, and it's just really authentic, and it just shows that like it's all about the family to us, and really that quality. So we started, we really took our time of building it. And I think it's a really good story because from 2013 to up until 2019, we stayed focused on really just trying to make it work in our core market. So we could have easily said, hey, we want to put this product everywhere, and we want to just see how it does and build sales. Where it was really like, okay, we're going to focus on some of our key accounts within the Northeast, because that's where at the time our brand was strongest. And for most of that time, that's where we stayed and did and continue to show some really tremendous success with the sauce. And then kind of how I got back into it at that time too, because I think it ties in well, is that with all that success we had, we started, having the opportunity to trickle down more into the South and Midwest and into the West Coast. And it was really my father and my uncle. My uncle really led a lot of the sales initiatives at the time, where they were very stretched in because they were kind of involved in logistics. They were involved in obviously the finances and running a company while also trying to sell. And they would reach out to me and say, hey, Joe, like when you get time after you get off work at Chobani, can you, we've all this data. We got to put like a fancy presentation together for some of these bigger retailers, and we got to be buttoned up. And, we don't know how to like tell the story, like they knew how to tell the brand story, but they didn't know how to tell the data story. And particularly in our industry and consumer packaged goods, it's very much, you got to have a great story. You got to have a unique selling proposition, but you also have to have like really good numbers behind your brand to show, hey, we've tested it in our core market, and we could show success and kind of like show them that the risk is not that high for them of taking it in. So that's where I would come in.
When you
And
say them, the store for taking in your
the
brand?
retailer buyers, yeah, they want to see, because for them it's shelf space like real estate, right? Where it's like they only have so much of it. So every decision they make, they try to be very calculated with, they'll take risks, of course, and some take more risk than others. But I think they want to see like, hey, you've already proven yourself. Like I have no risk taking you in because I know you're going to sell. So I think it helps show them like, you have momentum as a brand and that you could sell. And basically they would give me this information, say, hey, put together a nice presentation for us. And I love numbers. I love data. That's a lot of my background, when I was kind of cutting my teeth, within the industry outside of Botticelli. And, it was like late 2019, like November, I want to say. And I was just like, I was working like until midnight on a presentation for the company. And I was like, you know what? Like, I think it's time. Like, I kind of saw how things were changing in the pasta sauce segment, where, it was, not so much of the old, like, old brands, but a lot of these new brands that were coming on the scene that were more of premium quality, which was the same as ours. And I really thought to myself, I was like, why can't it be Botticelli? Why are these other brands seeing this meteoric rise when we're still kind of in this corridor here? Like, we have a great story, we have a great product. I need to sink my teeth in to figure out how we take it further. But it got the light bulb on for me. Like, hey, I think like I see my window now, and I think there's an opportunity here, and I want to be the one to help my family take it to the next level. And talking with my family and making that decision, I exited out of Chobani. I finished up there at the end of December of 2019, and then I came in 2020. And I think a big catalyst for us was obviously 2020. You're probably like, okay, that was a crazy time. And we found ourselves in a really unique position where we were out there trying to bring on new business. We had manufacturing abilities to help, scale. So we had runway to scale. And then March hits and the world shuts down. So a lot of companies within our space, they couldn't ship product. Because obviously, there was a lot of, regulations going on of, shutdowns. If, there was an outbreak, they would have to, clear out a place. And we stockpiled production during that time frame, and it allowed us kind of like I call it like the tipping point of the company, where retailers started having this space open up, because space is hard to come by.
Very interesting.
And they basically said, hey, if you could ship us, we'll give you guys a try and let's see how it does. And I was at that time, I came in and I basically was in charge of, and I still am, but sales and marketing. But really on the sales front, I wanted to go after the whole country, because when I started in 2020, we were in about like 4,000 or 5,000 stores, mostly on the East Coast at that time. And I felt, like I mentioned before, that this was a brand that was meant to be a national brand. And like I said, for me, like my love is like having friends, family try this product and be like, and blow their minds, where it's like, wow, like I don't need to make homemade sauce anymore. This stuff is so good that like it really solves that. And I think that for me, it was like, back to what I was saying before, like why not Botticelli, like, and have that experience around the country and really hit that white space opportunity. Because when we looked at it, like I mentioned, there's a lot of those legacy brands like a Prego, Ragu, Classico, Bertolli that have been around forever. You know, you look at their ingredient labels and you're like, it makes you think twice about like what's actually in the product. There's sugars in the product, and and then you have restaurant brands that have obviously set the scene, like a Rayo's, for example, that really trailblazed like higher end pasta sauces getting into the market. And then we kind of found ourselves being in a really unique spot because they're more restaurant focused, more like New York, Italian American, where we were selling the culture of Italy and really saying, hey, this is Italy in a jar, and really building that. So, we started gaining a lot of traction out there in the market of just, getting the sauces in there, getting people to try it, and then hearing how much they loved it and seeing the reorders come in and see the traction we were getting out there. And it was a faster scale. So I joke around like we were a 20-plus-year-old company, but I feel like we're really a 5-plus-year-old company because we really started getting onto the scene, within our space, really in more recent time, and building it.
Would you say at this point that the majority of your sales comes from the olive oil or the sauce at this point?
The pasta sauce.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
so we started out as really an olive oil company. We still are to our core. We are olive oil people, and that's what we love to do. But we have really seen, especially in these last like 5 years, that the pasta sauce has just kind of really taken off for us, and something that has really gained traction out there, and is what people have got. Like if you talk to an average person across the country in different pockets, you would get the answer if they know us for the sauce more than the oil. But here obviously we're very well known for our olive oil, and we're still scaling that and growing that. But the pasta sauce kind of just really blew up these last few years.
I want to talk about, you said something pre-COVID or early COVID. You talked about having the stockpile. Was that intentional, or did you just happen to have a stockpile? Was it happenstance that you had the stockpile and then you were able to fill the shelves, or like did you see something that was happening and then had the stockpile and then was able to capitalize on it?
Yeah, so it's not a funny story because obviously it was crazy time and very unfortunate circumstances. But my father, he relies on me for sales and marketing and brand building, and he really is the brains behind the operation, sourcing, quality, and he spends a lot of time over in Italy. At the time, mostly co-manufacturer based, and he was. It was I think the beginning of the first week of March, I want to say, before it hit the States, Italy had the outbreak before the United States did, and a widespread basis, right? And he was about to get on a plane. I think it was like a Sunday. He was just relaxing at the house. He just finished breakfast. He was getting ready to get his bags and go to JFK to get on a flight to go to Italy. And our co-manufacturer partner called us, and he's like, "Hey Sal, probably not the best idea. There's an outbreak of this virus. Nobody really knows what's going on, but it's pretty scary. So I suggest you cancel the flight. Don't come here. We're still trying to figure things out." And my father said, "Well, no problem, but you need to do me a favor." And he said, "What's that?" And he said, "I want to produce until you can't produce anymore. Send as many ships out as you possibly can, because if you guys can't produce, if you have to shut down because of this virus, then we're going to be out of business." So it was kind of like that moment where like we had to make these quick decisions, and to your point, it was a big risk because we were bringing in way more product than what we had in our demand plan of what we were expecting to
Wow.
sell. But we basically said like, hey, if things shut down for a few months there, we need to be able to have product here in the States. And that's the challenge we have as an importing company, because everything we do is in Italy, so we don't produce anything domestically. So we kind of had to make that decision and investment as a company to warehouse and finance this
Oh,
product to
wow.
get it here. And then, without even thinking like, okay, now we have to go out there, and like, we were just trying to survive. We were just trying to make sure we have product that support our customers. And we, it was a decision that really became a blessing in disguise for us, because like I mentioned, a lot of big brands out there, they just couldn't fulfill. So it gave us the
Wow.
opportunity. And
That's
you think
wild.
about the dynamics too, is like everyone was at home, and people, they have their routines, right? So someone who may have bought some of those other brands that I mentioned before, they knew that, right? But now when you're sitting at home, as we all were, nothing to do, TikTok was coming on, all these social medias with recipes, and people were like, you know what? I'm not going out to dinner. I'm not going on that vacation. Instead of spending $2, $3 for a jar of sauce, I'll spend $7, $8, and they were willing to spend a little bit more in the grocery store because, one, they couldn't find their product that they wanted. And then two, they weren't going to dinner. So they were, craving something a little bit more elevated of an experience. So it was kind of like a perfect storm from like a brand like ours perspective, where we were ready, willing, and able to support. And people, we had the product available, which was half the battle at that point, was just getting it on the shelf and getting people to try it. And we were just very fortunate and blessed to be in the right place at the right time. And behind all of that, a big push of mine was that on twofold actually. So one was, we were getting into these new markets. So all of a sudden, we were starting to get retailers in California that were bringing this on, and everyone really knew us in like the Metro New York, Northeast corridor, even down in the South. But now we're going into these new markets. We had to support this, like we couldn't just put a product out there and say, hey, it's gonna sell. We had to get people to know who we were. So in the midst of all this, which people thought we were crazy, because like all the big brands were shutting off advertising at this point. They weren't, because they didn't have products, so they weren't trying to promote their brand more. They were just trying to keep as much as on the shelf to keep their customers happy, that they had product to ship on an order, versus like trying to drive sales. So we took a real unique approach on actually building out a full national marketing campaign in the midst of a pandemic, which we talked to a lot of people, and they're like, "You guys are crazy. You sure you could support this?" And we started really ramping up. So that was one piece of like how we supported the growth. But then number two was we actually outgrew out of our co-manufacturer with the volume increases, and we actually were able to take an ownership position in a manufacturer down in Sicily, to really allow us to control the supply chain, because obviously during that time with there was so much inflation with cargo ships, the price skyrocketed 10, 20x, cost of materials, because it was hard to move things around at that time. So we really made an initiative to like, we need to go out there and really take ownership of our supply chain as much as we possibly can. And we actually are proud to own a manufacturer for both olive oil and pasta sauce. But on pasta sauce, it was a really strong point in time, because we were growing the business so much that we took ownership of manufacturing. We actually have some farming that we do ourselves as well too for our tomatoes. So we have tomato supply chain as well as production too. So it really allowed us to fuel that growth all the way back to the supply chain, but also support it too, back to the original one of just getting people to know who we were, and being authentic about it. And the branding is continuing to evolve, and we're excited about a lot of initiatives that are coming out. But it was crazy. Like we went from the number 30 best selling pasta
Wow.
sauce in 2020 to today we're the number 6 or number 7 best selling pasta sauce in grocery, depending on the week, because there's obviously a lot of fluctuations. But we're a top brand within the space, and one of the only few that have been able to grow as fast as we have, and also be family owned too. So I think that's a big thing to mention, is that a lot of the companies that are above us, they're either, backed financially, or they're owned by a big, corporate conglomerate. So we go to battle. These brands are probably saying, who are these guys? Like, they come out, especially me. When I started, I was 25 years old, and I would always get jokes when I would go into a meeting. I go, like, guess how old he is? Like, we got a kid in the room, and it was funny because, it was definitely, different time, and the industry's evolved a lot over the last few years. But it was just funny, like, who's this 25-year-old kid going out there and selling pasta sauce and getting his name out there? But it was, like I said, crazy times, and unfortunate times. But so many things changed with consumer dynamics that we were very blessed to be at the right place in the right time and be able to support it the way we did, because, like I said, we were self-invested in this. So, like, as our company grew, we really reinvested it back in the brand to get people aware, and really get in front of these consumers, and tell them who we were.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. And I love the risk aspect of it. I think that, so many entrepreneurs, you know what, let me rephrase it. I think that the mark of a true entrepreneur, like a true bred entrepreneur, is a willingness to take risks.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of people that own their own businesses, or even, consider owning businesses, but they would probably be better suited as like a manager of a company, or like a top tier manager, because they don't have that risk tolerance, or their company maybe is stuck or stagnant at a specific spot because they're not willing to take those risks. And
Yeah.
sometimes you get burned on those risks. Like, this conversation could have turned in a totally different way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it definitely wouldn't have turned in the way it did if you didn't take that risk in the first place.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about, you mentioned branding a lot and marketing a lot. I want to talk about your specific marketing plan. Like, what are you actively doing to go from number 30? Obviously, first part is have a great product, right?
Yes.
But outside of that, like, what are you actively doing on, whether it be TV or radio or news or whatever the case is, or social media? Like, what is your active marketing campaign, and how have you seen it work or not work?
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, how our biggest opportunity is just getting people to know who we are and trying the product. We know that once we get into the kitchen, we don't lose in the kitchen. We really show that, and like you said, you're a consumer yourself, so it's like you get quality for a really good value that is really not a comparison in the market today. And I think that's something that we realize, okay, like, we know we have that down. Now you just got to get the people to try it. So we take a lot of multitudes of ways, but I think we started from a high level of realizing who we were. And I think, obviously growing, there's so many different aspects of that, but it goes back to what I was saying before, is that we found this lane in the category where, our focus, our vision is the art of Italian flavor. So really what that means is that we're trying to bring that Italian experience in a jar of sauce, in a bottle of olive oil, and bring that to households, right? That they feel like that is really like, but we just soaked up all the tomatoes and the culture, not just that, but like having a plate of pasta in Italy. And we felt like that was something that was unique, compared to a lot of other brands out there, that we could really tell that story and stay focused on it. And really what we started doing, in the beginning, it was a little bit smaller scale of, a lot of influencer marketing,
Really?
social media marketing, and it's evolved in that, first it was about, tomatoes, and then we started getting more, in the beginning, and then it was more about the Italian culture. And now we're really trying to get that perfect marriage of, Italian culture, Italian quality, but also backed by a family, and who the family is, and really telling the story that, hey, we make these products with our heart and soul, and we really, it's something that's just different out there because it's real. People, especially nowadays, they're so, skeptics of, these big brands of, what's in the product, but like, who are these people? Is this, a glass tower, and there's people in a boardroom that are making decisions, based on the stock market price. And, then you have, brands like ours that, are really doing this for the love of what we do. And I think that story resonates with people more and more now than it ever has before. So we take a lot of different initiatives, like I mentioned, on social media, influencing. We do national televised commercials. So, really trying to get that message home of, like, it's a farm to table product, and it's made by a family with love. And, talking to them about that, continuing to stay in front of them, because, we're very fortunate in our business. It's pretty, I mean, there's obviously, highs and lows, but it's a really steady business that, pasta sauce, for example, or even olive oil, it's a pantry essential. You go into most family kitchens, you're going to find one or two of those products, guaranteed, for most families. So it's something that you have to consistently stay in front of people. You can't just do a 1 month campaign and kind of take kick your feet up for 6 months and then come back to it. You need to constantly be in front of these shoppers, because there's so much activity and there's so many options out there, whether it's a promotion or an ad campaign. It's just continuing to stay in front of them. And then really the best one, the most challenging one, is getting it into people's mouths. And we do a lot of demos, to get people to try the product. And I love to personally go out and do some demos myself too, and just talk to consumers, because or anyone from our team, honestly, too, because they tell the story in such a great way that people hear it, they connect to it, and it's something they want to get behind and support too.
Absolutely. One thing I want to say is you sent me something prior to our meeting. It was this, I don't know what we call it, a pitch deck or like a brand. What would you call it, a brand deck?
Like a brand guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just kind of giving an example of but I think brand guidelines. I think when people hear that, and when I even received it, I was like, oh, is this like what I can and can't talk about with the brand? Totally.
Yeah.
It was actually talking about for the audience so they can understand it. It was talking about like who the brand is, what we stand by, who our demographic is. It was essentially and I responded to you in the email. I said, man, I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs. None of them have anything like this or to this level, and I wish they did, because it gave me such a beautiful picture of who you guys are as a brand, and it gave me a whole basis of questions and topics. But just it really. I was like, man, I want like a pasta and sauce right now, because it really made me connect, because you guys did a great job at like talking about who you are, what the product is, what we believe, why we use the quality of ingredients that we use.
Yeah.
And then what I found really interesting, and I was kind of studying this myself, was the demographic page.
Yeah.
So you had a couple pages, and I found this remarkable on the demographics of who your consumers are, and you broke them down to different pretty much age categories.
Yeah.
Whether it be like the more seasoned adults, right? The middle-aged kind of, or young families to middle age, and then everything down to what channels they're watching on TV, to what they do for activities. I found it remarkable. Like, but there's no question, seeing that now, there's no question as to why you guys are the number 6 brand in the selling sauce, because you have such a great touch on who your consumer is.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do a lot of research on that too. I think the big thing, we have many core values at the company, but really, two that I think, stick on what you were saying is focus and consistency. So I think those are 2 things. That's everything we do. And I think from that perspective, we do a lot of market research, through understanding, who's buying our product, and how do you better connect with these people? Because I think, especially in branding, it's that focus.
I want to hear about who's buying the product. How do you, as a business owner, how are you guys actively finding that out? Like, where are you getting that information from? The market research.
So we do a lot of work with Nielsen. We partner with them, and really, getting, data. They have a lot of research reports, and they know, who's going into the stores, and through receipt data and demographic information, they're able to kind of pinpoint, okay, you have a high indexing, rate versus this demographic group, vice versa. Where's there opportunities for you where, others are succeeding and maybe you're not, and regardless of what it looks at too. So we spend a lot of time both on like market research, but then doing our own too. So especially with a lot of we're announcing it next week for our upcoming rebrand. We talked to consumers too, and really got to hear like how they use the products. And we talked to some of our raving fans about what they love about the product, how they use it, what resonates with the brand there too. So we love talk, like we a few times a year, we're doing some, discussions with our consumers to really understand, ideas from them, get inspired by them, and what are the things they want to see more of from us too. So I think it's exactly to your point. It's so important to stay focused on that, because this is that's your lifeline. These are your people that are supporting you out there, and really making the brand successful for what it is, and enjoying it at the home, which for me is the most fulfilling part of everything too.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I really appreciate about you guys and the product that you have is that, first of all, it obviously tastes great, right? But that should be a precursor. I heard somebody say in an interview once, or in one of these conversations, we were talking about reviews of like when people leave a bad review, and he's like, in all reality, like, it shouldn't surprise you when you get a good review, because like that should be the standard. Like, everything should be good. It's like, if you get a bad review, then you should pay attention, because like the standard should be good, right?
Absolutely,
but obviously you guys have a great standard of putting out a great product. But what I really appreciate, and something I've been focusing on in my life, but also my family's life for the past couple of years, is the ingredient list of typically what's going into our food.
Yeah.
And often for a while when we would buy sauce, if I didn't make it from my at home, right?
Yeah,
You know, I gotta say that
yeah, of
as
course.
somebody that's part Italian, I do make my own sauce. But if I happen to buy sauce, right, as an
Yeah, yeah.
Italian, you know,
I won't tell anyone, I promise.
the ingredient list is crazy in a lot of these things, and it was
Oh, yeah.
hard to find brands that had clean sauces, which I really appreciated in your new initiative with partnering with Whole Foods. The line you have there is
Yep.
very clean, like 4 ingredients in a
Yep.
lot, or like 5 or 6 ingredients, like, but they're all real ingredients. It's like tomatoes and basil and onions and garlic and olive oil, and it's
Yep.
like, oh wow, this is how I'd make sauce at home. And what I really appreciate, secondly, is the fact that the oftentimes when I'd buy jarred sauce, I'd have to add ingredients because they just didn't taste good.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I have to do it with yours. So I want to talk about how you justify the pricing structure in the sense that when entering the market, oftentimes a lot of businesses will be like, hey, let's try to undercut the competition so that we can get more sales in a volume aspect. But you're actually, for a lot of the product, you're going above the product. And I think you can justify that because you can say it's a great, like a higher quality product. But how do you convince the consumers that it's a better product?
Yeah. So I think it's a really good point you mentioned. And obviously, it's a fierce space where you have, brands that are priced above us and priced below us. And we like to find ourselves that, we try to trade people up. We've seen through our demographic information of that, we're getting that consumer that exactly like yourself that, when you talk to consumers, a lot of them say, why do you buy a certain brand? It's all because I grew up on it. That's what my mom gave me, and in different economical circumstances, and even maybe they've upgraded in economic status, but they're still buying something that they've just known and they're comfortable with. I mean, especially with sauce, it's a taste flavor, right? So it's like if you like something, you're going to probably stay loyal to it, right? And I think people realize, especially with a lot of the movements that have been going on in recent years, that people are checking the back of products. You walk around a grocery store and everyone's looking and studying labels, and I think that's where we really come in, and that we provide a product that is accessible to the broader consumer base. It's not completely out of whack where you're spending above $10 for a jar of sauce, but you're getting it for a respectable rate, and there's a return and a value to that because of the quality that's behind it. And I think the reason why we're able to do that, and we do a lot of promotional activity out there too to get people to try it, because we see we get them to try it once, like we see that they pick it up and they stay loyal to the brand. So we're very fortunate in that perspective, because a lot of brands, they'll promote, they'll do a temporary price reduction, and they'll get people to try it, but then they say, oh, you know what, it was a value, I bought it at that time, but I can't reason with spending $9-10 for a jar of sauce, but I could come somewhere in the middle there, and I think that's where we find ourselves. And it's something that I think really helps us stand out, is that we try to be affordable to the everyday consumer, and really give them value for, hey, we know it might not be affordable for some families, but taking that extra value gives them that quality and back, and just good ingredients behind it. And even you get a great pasta to go with that sauce. You could cook a great meal for under $10. Which you go out to a restaurant, it could be, $30 for a plate of pasta. So when you kind of look at it in the grand scheme of things too, like we're trying to provide like a great meal, with our sauce or our olive oil that is accessible to the consumer. But I think it's, to your point, it's all about the clean ingredients. And I think we're very fortunate the fact that it is an imported product. There's a lot of rules and regulations in the European Union on that you can't export certain ingredients. I know there's been a lot of, TikToks and informational videos. If you look at like a box of cereal, here in the United States versus a box of cereal in Italy, like it could be the same brand and the same, like, quote unquote, same like item, but it's completely different, ingredient deck. So I think that's where, we benefit, obviously, because you can't import, bad ingredients really from the EU. So we have to stay within compliance, obviously, too. But I think just from a quality standpoint, like we mentioned before, we would never want to sell a product that had these bad ingredients in them, because you're going to feel it in the taste, right? And I think a lot of that comes because bigger companies and trying to drive a stock price, or trying to make a spreadsheet work, and not really thinking about the quality and what people are eating and ingesting too.
Sure, absolutely, putting the product and the profit before the people.
Yep, exactly.
Which is I mean, obviously it's working for some people, but then
Yeah.
I don't know.
And there's a need for certain things too.
Sure. I've also heard it been said that I have never been to Italy. It's on my bucket list to go to Italy, but so I've also heard it said that oftentimes when people go to Italy, they eat so much, they eat all they can, particularly people from that are coming from the U.S.
Yeah.
But then they're coming back losing weight.
Yeah.
And And it's not necessarily because you're doing a lot of walking or anything like that. It's just because you can travel to anywhere. You can go to California and do the same amount of walking. It's the
Yeah,
fact that the ingredients and the quality of the food is so much better. So you're just importing
absolutely.
that food here
Yeah.
to New York
And that's why
or
we
to
really stay
America.
firm and like, we have our products come from Italy, and that's, it's true to our brand promise. Like, we're an Italian brand and we want to bring real Italian products, in what we do. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say it is expanded too. I've been very fortunate. When I started here, we were a team of maybe, 7, 8 people. We pretty much have doubled in headcount now. But it's the people that we bring in too. And I think that's, for me, like, that is the most gratifying thing of like building this brand, is the people. I mean, I'm proud of the brand's accomplishments of what we've done, but I think we've really created a family culture. We call ourselves the Botticelli family. So really, what it means is how we're getting more entrepreneurs, that we're just multiplying our entrepreneurial mindset people here. And I think we're a very fast-paced environment. On any given day, we have ideas that are going on of things we want to implement right away for a business, or maybe a new product or a new category that we want to get into in a year from now, or 2 years from now. So I think that's really been something that we've stayed true on, is like our culture of being, allowing our people to feel inspired when they work for a brand like ours, and to empower them to really feel like a business owner. I talk to my whole team about that, of hey, like, I have trust and faith in you, and that we're going to grow this business together. We're aligned to a vision, and we really do a good job of sharing that vision, I would say, across the team, but really empowering them to go act as a business owner when they talk to a client or they talk to a consumer, to really have that mindset of how we want to grow this brand. But now we have just a bigger team of people going towards that vision that we have of really being a brand that encompasses the art of Italian flavor.
So let's talk about that. I would love to hear about your onboarding process and how in the hiring you look for certain traits of individuals when you're taking them on as a team member.
So I would say for us, we operate on what's called the entrepreneurial operating system. So like I mentioned before, is people, especially with entrepreneurial companies, there's so much happening so quickly that it's so important of keeping everyone on track too. So it all starts with, our vision, which I mentioned already, but then also hiring people that are true to our core values. So like I mentioned, our core values are, consistency. We feel consistency leads to excellence, innovation. So we feel like, and that can mean a lot of different things. For someone who's in supply chain, coming up with a new way of looking at things. Obviously, you have your more true innovation. But there's so many ways that you could be innovative within a company that are outside of what the true term is of new products, new ideas. So I would say that's one of them too. Is respect. Obviously, we're a family company, so it's respect, caring, dedication to what we do and how we do it, get stuff done. Because obviously, when you're in a smaller team in a fast-growing business, like, that's what we do, right? We get things done, and we figure out a way. We like to call it too, and then the other one too is just problem solving, because with any growing business, there's going to be problems, and I think it's really taking a collaborative approach to how we do that. So I would say, like, we hire people based on these qualities, that we want to see fits within those molds there, to make sure that it makes sense for our team and our fast-paced environment. So that's definitely one piece of it too, and kind of how we operate as a team is, in this, they call it EOS, entrepreneurial system. It really starts with the problem that a lot of companies face, especially as they grow fast, is that they'll hear one thing from me, but then from my father or maybe my uncle, they hear another thing, right? So it's all starts with your leadership team, and really staying on point, really staying focused on the vision, which we have for the company, and creating a process behind that too. So I think what we do really well here is that we develop process flows for everything that we do, so that there's a template, right? So like you said, if a new person comes into the business, there's a proven process of how we go to market with our brand and how we succeed, that we teach our employees as they come onto the business too. I think the other one is data. So I think obviously, in the fast moving world that we're in now, it's very important to have information, in a timely manner. And I think that's something we monitor, and, establish KPIs for our business on how we measure success. So it's very transparent, amongst our team of, how are we doing as a business? Are we on track? Are we off track? So staying really focused on that. And then issues, we talk every week, each team here at the company, as well as our leadership team, because with any business, especially entrepreneurial business, there's always issues, right? And what happens a lot of times is that you don't formalize these problems, and you end up kicking the can down the road, or you never really solve anything. So for us, it's we call it identify, discuss the issue, and solve it. And we do that as a group together in a very collaborative way. So it's really that. And then just getting traction behind all those things too is like once you kind of put all those things together and you get people really believing and everyone's on the same page and everyone's working together and firing on all cylinders, that's where the magic happens. So, back to your question about onboarding, is like we really walk our employees through that process and make them experts on how we do what we do too, from a sourcing perspective. When it comes to our tomatoes, what makes our product different than others, doing taste tests versus competitors and, showing them, oh, you taste that's a little different than what you taste in ours. Well, that's XYZ ingredient, or, they cook it a different way, and kind of help them understand and become experts. And the same with olive oil too, because olive oil is, it's a love language. It really is. There's so many different types of olive oils out there, and how we do things here in our product line. So I think it's really making them experts on the product, understanding our process of how we do things, and just from a hiring perspective, just making sure, we have the right fit people working for our organization.
I think what you just said about making every employee an expert on the product is incredibly key to anything. And in fact, I think a lot of businesses miss the mark on that, because I think that a lot is lost in translation, especially as the company grows.
Yeah.
The message gets diluted, and it's the game of telephone.
Yeah.
I used to, the leader says one thing, but he says it to the manager, who says a slightly different thing in
Yep.
his own perspective. Then he gets it to the assistant manager, and then by the time it gets to the lower level newer employee, it's a totally different concept of what the original owner said.
Absolutely.
And it's nothing. To be honest with you, there's nothing worse to go into a company or restaurant, or whatever the case may be. Like, you say, "Hey, what is this?" And the employee has no idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like I guess I'm not gonna get that,
Yeah.
anywhere. Like, whether you could be at a hardware store or anything like that. And it's like, for having the employees know about the product and say, actually, well, we the reason we use these types of tomatoes instead of this type of tomatoes because of blank is like, that made a sale right there, and it makes all the it's definitely a lot more work, and people might not understand it and stuff, and maybe it's a little slower to do than just saying, hey, just go out and sell.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think for us, the big thing is like, because you could teach people like, like present the process and all that, but one thing that you can't teach a lot of times is passion. And I think that's one thing that, you'll learn from, meeting any employee at our company, is that, they have passion for what we do. And I think that's why, a big part of, cultural fit for a lot of our employees is like that empowerment of, feeling like they are part of something bigger, and part of a mission that is like really true and meaningful out there too. But I think it's that passion and that hunger to grow with having the expertise of the products that really makes the magic happen.
Are there any products or services or platforms that you guys use to help streamline your company and help you guys stay in check or move faster, or just stay connected?
Yeah, I would say really it's just, as simple as a weekly team meeting. It's kind of following that same model as like, the way we the process and issues, and really talking about that amongst the group. So we do that like in individual teams. So I do that with my team as well as other teams here at the company. But I think it's just as simple as that, like just people to people connecting and talking about what's going on in your business, and really solving issues. I think that's a big thing, because you could get, as you mentioned, you could get so bogged down in like certain things and you're not solving anything, and it just creates a lot of confusion. So I think for us, it's really just staying in touch with each other, and talking through when, someone's having a challenging time, or there's something great going on, of sharing that with the group, or, hey, I have an issue with, XYZ, how do this is what I think, but what do you guys think? And just getting different perspectives and staying very close to it, as a team, has really helped us, grow and progress forward, and work through the issues, because there's always going to be issues in any company. It's which is it's a good thing, and obviously it's like, we got to work through it, and they're really opportunities, and it's in, whether it's a bad thing and we solve it, but we learn from it as well too. And I think that's a big thing as a brand that's growing. Like, we've had our fair share of speed bumps of things that it's like, hey, things didn't go to plan, or XYZ, and you learn, and you get better from it too. So I think that's, I always hear, from many podcasts, that's like, it's the stress, and it's not stress, but like, just challenges, and feeling uncomfortable is what makes you better. And I think that's something that we've definitely, I think my team would attest to that too. It's like, it gets crazy at times, but it's, we have a lot of fun doing it. And it's just like, you learn from everything to just make you better, and run things smoother over time.
Absolutely. So what's next for Botticelli as a brand?
So obviously, you mentioned before, we're launching a new line at Whole Foods, and we're actually going to be unveiling one of our biggest shows in the industry is next week. It's called Natural Products Expo West. We consider it our Super Bowl in the CPG industry, but we're in the midst right now of revamping our brand. So we're super excited about announcing that to the world next week, and the packaging is going to start flowing in over these next few months. So it's been an initiative that we've probably been working on for the last year and a half of, we've taken great steps in previous years of really, fine tuning things, but we felt like with the evolving worlds, and just trends within the industry that we wanted to modernize, but stay true to our roots. So I think we actually worked with an agency that really helped us talk to our consumers and understand, what do they love about our brand? What do they want to see more of? What's important to them? And we really evolved the architecture of our labels to focus on that. So family owned is a big prominent part of our branding now. It really wasn't before. People want to know about that, and also just the modern look to it too. So we try to stay true to Italian heritage while also bringing more modern Italian aesthetic design into what we do, as well as just really connecting with consumers too. So, as I mentioned, our vision is the art of Italian flavor. And what we're doing on a lot of our packaging now is, creating a personalized experience for a consumer that when they go buy our product at the store, there's going to be a QR code that gives them a specific recipe for that product that they can only scan by getting it on the shelf.
Wow.
And that's going to continue to circulate. So they might buy our marinara sauce, tomorrow. They'll get a QR code for it. It'll bring them there. They might buy it in another month, and it's going to be a new recipe. So you can't just find it on the website. It's going to go through that QR code. So it creates like this exclusivity recipe club to keep our loyal consumers engaged with the brand, because that's the big feedback we get from a lot of our shoppers is that they want to know how to use these products. They know how to make a pasta with the sauce, but how can you get creative? We had a viral video this year that for soups with our vodka sauce. And how do you emulsify it, and how do you just take it out of there and you can make a quick soup out of our pasta sauce? So that just expanded another need for why they would want to buy our product outside of the traditional, spaghetti and meatballs with the marinara sauce, and coming up with these different ideas. So it's just how we take feedback from consumers and want to really create, a really nice community within Botticelli, and something that keeps them excited to come back to pick up another product and try it.
Very interested to see how the QR code rolls out. How do you guys actively how are you planning to market that and tell the consumer, hey, by the way, is it just going to be on the package, or do you have a marketing plan behind saying, hey, scan this QR code?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a really big push with social media influencers and just, digital advertising to kind of show that story and start creating more of a community around it. So we're in the middle of a revamp right now on our website to kind of build that up a little bit further too, but talking about our Botticelli community and really getting people to know about it.
Can you speak to your influencer marketing in the sense of, for other brands listening to this that might want to get into influence marketing, are you guys just actively reaching out to influencers and saying, hey, can we work something out where whatever the deal might be, or how do you get your product into the hands of an influencer who then makes a video for your product?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate. We work with an amazing agency that really works tandem with our team on our marketing strategies and working with influencers in particular. And really for us, it's finding who's that right alignment, and finding brand, like we work with the Burrata Babe, and obviously she has a huge following within the Italian American community, Italian products, and we just try to find good fits so that it's really organic, and try to find right touch points where we're not just kind of spreading it out there and trying to get a million influencers onto our brand. We try to find influencers that really align with our branding as well.
Well, I'm really excited for you guys, really excited for what's going on and what's coming next for you guys.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you as well too. It was an honor.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. So if you are a business owner, first of all, actually, anybody that listens to this, thank you so much, all the listeners. We really appreciate you and your support. But if you're a business owner, or any business owners or entrepreneurs you think might be a good fit for this podcast, please reach out, send me a message or send me an email. I'd love to have you and hear your story. So Joe, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you as well.
I'll go make a pot of sauce right now.
I appreciate it. Enjoy. Thank you.